Hi, my name is John Ceccarelli, and I'm a product manager with Oracle. And today we're going to be taking a look at doing an HCM extension using Oracle Visual Builder Cloud Service and PCS. So let's take a look at the finished app that we're going to be working with. So this is an app to manage parking spot requests. It pulls in from HCM, it pulls in all of the location names, and it extends the locations with parking spots. There's a custom business object called parking spots. Here the facilities manager can assign parking spots to different employees, and this pulls in employees from the REST service, from the HCM REST service. We also have UI for creating a parking spot request. All right, and again, specifying which location, giving a justification. And then once we create the parking spot request, then tasks will be assigned to the requester's manager to approve the request, and then to the facilities owner to go in and assign the parking spot and approve the request. So that's the app that we're going to be building. Let's go ahead and start putting that together. Here I have an application that I've already created. I have two tabs here, my parking admin and my parking. And then the first thing we're going to do is bring in the REST services. So I'll come to the data designer, do select from external service. Now, typically I would have my VBCS instance in the same identity domain as my HCM instance. In that case, I would be able to just go into the catalog, and here this would show all of the HCM REST APIs ready for me to use. But because for this demo purposes, I have my VBCS instance in another identity domain, I actually have to manually specify the location of the REST APIs that I'm going to be calling. So what I do is I bring in the URL of the describe, and the describe is just part of Oracle SaaS REST APIs, and it's just a document that describes all of the functionality in that REST API. And we're going to go ahead and just call that with a app ID. So I'll paste in my credentials here and click next. So now what this is doing is it's going out and it's downloading this entire this describe, and from that describe it's parsing it and it's letting me know what business objects it found in there. And it found the employee or the emp. Emp has all the children. We just want the top level emp. And now we can decide which fields we want. Some of these REST APIs have lots of fields. Many of them we often don't need. I am going to bring in the username field here. And we've said that for authentication, we're going to call it with our app ID. So this will create business object for employees. All right. And there we go. There's our business object for an employee. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing for locations now. Right, and here again has all the subjects. We're just going to bring in the top level object, and here I want to actually bring in a couple of more things like the address. Let's bring in postal code, the region, town or city. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we have our employee, we have our location, we can start designing our services. Let's start with doing the parking spot requests. I'm going to bring in a 2-column layout, shrink it down to 1/3, 2/3. And now I'm just going to bring in a table, and we will call this parking spot request. Okay, So what we're doing is we're creating a new business object. This is a custom business object, which means it lives in the VBCS database, not in the HCM database table. And what this is doing is it's creating the database tables in the VBCS database. It's exposing them as REST, bringing them into the UI, and binding them to this JavaScript UI here. So now we can create the fields that we want. I want to have the location, and here I'll do a reference to location, and we'll use location name as the display, right? And what else? Maybe let's do a new thing called status. I want to have a pick list here, right? It's just going to have some values. So let's do, say, requested, manager approved, assigned, and rejected. All right. And let's also maybe put in the creation date. Okay. So now here I can say which CRUD actions I want to have on here. I want to be able to create and edit details. I probably don't want to be able to delete something once it's in there. And I could put some advanced options on here. No need for that because we don't expect this list to be very long. Let's also bring in some headers here. This is going to be my tasks. Let's make that smaller. Bring another one in here and call this my parking requests. And again, we're going to make this smaller. Okay, great. All right, so you can see here that it didn't just create this table. It also created all of the pages for working with the table, all the CRUD pages. So I can switch into live mode and click around in the UI anywhere. So I can come in here and click and go into my create. So let's remove the status for now because we actually don't want them to be able to set that when they're creating it. Let's add a test field for justification, and we're going to make this required and make this guy required as well. I don't really like these save and close and save and continue. I'd like to just have one save button, and there we go. Now if I go to my edit parking spot request, we've got our location. We want to have some additional information here, like who was it created by, when was it created on. We need our justification, obviously, and we're going to leave our location and status in there. Again, I don't like these guys. Personally, I like to just have save and cancel. Okay, let's go back to my parking page. And what else can we do here? Let's, I like this to say created on instead of creation date. And we're going to add an action to this column that's going to go to edit the parking spot request. So again, this is a live running app. I can come in here. I can go ahead and create a request here that says, because I drive, save it, and we'll see that it was in here. I can come in here. All right. So everything is working. Okay, great. Let's go into the parking admin and let's build out our administration screens now. So let's bring in a table. We're going to link it to location, and we're going to have the location name, and we're going to have the country, and that's it. This is a read-only REST API, so only the details is available. And I'm going to go ahead and put on a basic filter over location name because we probably have a lot of these. Okay, let's clean this up again. Want this to have a nice human readable name, and we're going to set this column to link to the edit page. All right, so now in here we're going to edit this, parking spots for, and then we're going to append the value, the location name to here. So parking spots for headquarters, that means we don't need that anymore. I can go into the data tab, and as you saw, I need to select the right business object, but once I've selected the right business object, I can just drag and drop from here. So let's put the full address in here just for fun. Right, address line 1, the city, the region, postal code, and we got the country. All right, and now let's build out the parking spots. Okay, now I'll bring a table, and when I drag a table onto here and I create a new business object, what I'm creating is a new child of the object for which we're on the edit screen. So this is a detail screen for location. So if I come in here and create a new object called parking spot, what I've done is I've created a new child object of parking spot that lives not in the HCM database, but lives in the VBCS database. Okay, so let's come in here and give it some fields like code, floor, let's say assign to, and here we're going to link that to employee, and username is what we want to use there. Great. Okay, so there's the parking spots. I don't want to be able to create or delete things in here, right? I would be uploading all the data using a spreadsheet. I just want to be able to edit. You know, we don't even need details. We just do edit. Okay, and we're going to be able to filter on that. There we go. Let's set the action for this to be edit. And you know what? If we come in here actually, and we remove this action, that gets rid of that action column. Since we only have one action, the link in this is sufficient. Now I don't need that actions column with that hamburger menu over there. Okay, so let's take a look now what our data designer looks like. So I've got my employees, I've got my location with the custom child, which is a parking spot. I've got my parking spot request. I've got my separate status LOV or list of values table that's out there. So coming into the parking spot, let's go ahead and upload this from a spreadsheet that I have. So we go to the data tab, import, here's my CSV, and let's import that. We had one little warning, but overall, looks like this worked. Let's take a look. And indeed, here are all of our parking spots are displayed. All right, so now we basically got all our UI done. Let's go ahead and create the backend for this, or build out the backend for this. So coming back to the business objects, first thing I'm going to do is on a parking spot request, I'm going to create a business rule here. I'm going to do a new trigger that says set initial status. Right? And this is going to be before I create something, I want to always execute, and I want to always set the status to requested. Okay, let's save that. All right. Now, if we come into Page Designer, let's go back to my parking, create one of these, headquarters, blah, blah, blah. I save that. See that, come back over here, that it gets set to requested. Okay. All right, now we've set, so that's how you set some server-side triggers. You could also set into business rules validations for the object, validations for the fields, or just write some object functions that could be called from any of these. But let's go ahead and look at the process. So this instance is hooked up to an instance of PCS, or Process Cloud Service, which is in the same identity domain. So we can call this parking request. Okay. And now when I save this, what's this doing is it's going out to PCS and it's setting up a new application inside of PCS. Inside of that, it's setting up a new, it's populating a new process in there. And so it takes a couple of seconds to do all this. And once that finishes, great, all done, we can come in and launch into PCS. So now we're in PCS. You'll see up here, Process Cloud Service. And we're in the composer. Okay. And so what you'll see is that we're going to fire an event from the VBCS UI. We're going to fire an event that's going to start a process, an instance of this process, right? First thing it's going to do is it's going to go via REST. It's going to go get some information from the business objects that the process is going over. So in order to do that, I need to come in here to my security settings, and I need to enable basic authentication for business object REST APIs. This means that the REST APIs, the business objects that I have, like parking spot request and parking spots, can be accessed by other cloud services via REST. Okay, the other thing I need to do to enable that is if I go into integrations, I have this connector already pre-populated that goes out and gets the information from the parking spot request, right? So it's already got all the REST APIs registered and so forth. Only thing I need to do here is add a security key, and it's actually remembering my password. So there we go. Okay, now we can start building out our process. So we're going to add 2 swim lanes, one for the manager and one for the facilities manager. Okay, so we've got our approval here. This is going to be called manager approval. Okay, and then we're going to put another approval down here. This is going to be called facilities approval. And then we need to put in an exclusive gateway over here. So the manager is going to approve, and our gateway is going to say, was it approved? The default is going to be that it is approved, and now we need to set a condition on this guy. All right. So I'm going to say if the task outcome data equals reject, let's validate that. That is correct. Okay, if that equals reject, then immediately go to completed. Otherwise, you're going to come down to the facilities approval, and the facilities approval, regardless of whether he approves or denies, it's going to go and be completed. Okay, so there we go. We start the process, we get the information from the REST APIs, we set up a task for the manager. Manager says, you can see down here, the actions can be approve or reject. And that sends it to this exclusive gateway. It says, looks at what was the task outcome. If it was a reject, sends it over here. Otherwise, it sends it down to facilities. Facilities approves, assigns, and then it's completed. So we can save that. We can publish our V1. And now we deploy. Very important here. The first time you deploy, and really it's best to just do this every time you deploy from here. Don't deploy from in here, okay? You need to deploy in here because the reason for this, technically the reason behind this is that VBCS needs to be the one that deploys it so that it can get a handle to the process definition. So then once it's got a handle to the process definition, it always knows where to send the events to start off instances of that process for every new parking request. So it's deploying. This will take a couple of seconds. If we did everything right, we should see a success message. In the meantime, let's go ahead and build out our UI some more. So coming into create, first thing we need to do is go into here. This is our actions editor. You can see that we have a declarative editor. You can also switch to see what it looks like in code, right? And we want to say that the save button here is not just going to save, but it's also going to start a process. And the process is going to be parking request. All right. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go into my parking. Now we need to set up our task list. This is pretty simple. Under here we have this task list component. We say which processes do you want to show tasks for, and what information do you want to show. We don't have a whole lot of room, so I'm going to just have name and the process definition ID, and it's going to say what page do you want to open when you go into the details for this. Okay, so I'll click finish. So this means that every time somebody logs into here, it's going to go and take a look and say, hey, every time I show this page, for the process, which is parking spot approvals, do I have any tasks right now? Similarly, in the edit parking spot request, we're going to want to have a PCS task button, which again is going to take a look at the parking request process, and it's going to say, for this current user, for this record, is there a PCS action that I need to take right now? And we're going to set it to close after it's done. All right, let's cancel out of here. Let's take a look, see if this worked correctly. All right, so let's go in and create headquarters. I bought a second car. Give me 2 parking spots. Save that. Okay, it was requested, and then if I come back to this page, yes, I can see that I have a task. Now, right now, because I'm in test mode, I'm logged in as all 3. I'm logged in as the requester, the manager, and the, the facilities admin. So when I go live, I would actually specify, different roles for those things. Okay, so now I'm the manager, and I come in and I say, okay, I have this. I'm going to set this to manager approved, and I'm going to approve. In a later video, I'll show you how to make this read-only and how to define some service tasks in here that will, using these REST calls, that will set that for us based on the outcome. But for now, we're just going to set it manually, so I can submit. Great. Come back. See, here's our thing, right? Now I'm the facilities manager. I come into the details. See, this guy asked for parking spot at headquarters. I'm going to cancel out of that and go to parking admin, go into headquarters, find a parking spot that's not assigned. I'll assign it to that person. Okay, and now I can come back over here under the details, set this to assigned, and approve. And there you go. There's our application. Stay tuned for a lot more videos on building out HCM extensions. Like I said, we're going to take a look at how to update this using REST APIs based on the outcomes of the tasks. We're going to take a look at how to set up the emails that go out to remind people about the tasks, how to set up scheduling, how to set up the security, and eventually how to embed this back into HCM so that it's all in the same UI. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.